Well, hello there and welcome back. This is episode 53 of my Minecraft 1.16 Let's Play. I'm at my wither skeleton farm and I'd like to make some changes here. I recently took all the bone from my regular mob farm. It was about 20 shulker boxes full, and I put it all to use at my new tree farm, and I forgot that Ass and I were planning on working on another tree farm that's actually going to be bigger than this one. And we're going to need a lot of bone for that, and we're looking at my most productive bone farm, and I'm actually throwing all the bone away. It's all getting chucked into lava. So that's going to have to be changed. So I checked the rates. The regular mob farm produces about 4,500 bone per hour, somewhere around 3 shulker boxes. It's still pretty decent, but this one with wolves produces about 6,000 bone per hour. And if you use looting 3, it's about 24,000 bone per hour. It's just ludicrous rates. However, this item collection system has never been able to keep up with looting 3 for more than about 10 or 15 minutes. So it's going to need some pretty monumental changes in order for that to work. And on top of that, in 1.16, we've now got an issue where this right here, if there's any items coming through the non-stackable item sorter, then it's powering this. It's actually not working properly in 1.16. And it's even throwing some of the items away that are going through the non-stackable item filter. So if you look down here, we're throwing away items that are stackable. So it's actually going to throw away wither skeletons as well. So that part's not working either. So all the way around, this whole item collection system needs a complete revamping. So this monstrosity right here is on a whole other level than my previous sorting system. It's actually a lot closer to the Piglin Trading Center, where we are using slime blocks to push items across ice paths so that we can deal with the items a lot faster than a hopper chain or even multiple hopper chains can. And there's a few extra things that I've added as well. So Acid and I were actually working on a shulker box loader for the tree farm, and we came up with a 4-speed shulker box loader that is only 3 wide. So that's it right there. We'll jump down on it in just a second. So this right here, it uses droppers on both sides and an observer clock to feed items into it at 4 speed. And it's not very big at all. So this is going to be very generally useful. You'll probably see a lot of this in the future. So this actually also has a safety mechanism where if this dispenser is empty right here, it will stop operating, because it's a pet peeve of mine with these dropper-based systems. When they run out of shulker boxes, they just spit items out forever, and they don't even care that there's no shulker box there. So it's got a safety mechanism here that'll actually turn it off if it's out of shulker boxes. So I really like that as well. So I like to build these things in survival first, just to make sure that everything's working properly. Everything seems to be working great. I really love this system quite a bit. So I will definitely be making a tutorial of this in the very near future. And then up here, right below the Wither Skeleton platform, I needed a way to get all the items out of the hoppers as quickly as possible. So I used a hopper minecart configuration that I got from Nemom's Gold Farm. And this is working pretty well because that one basically had the same problem. Most of the items are landing in just this one hopper right here. And so I needed to spread that out into as many hoppers as possible and then get it down into the ice stream down there as quickly as possible. So this actually seems to keep up pretty well. And then down here at the item collection, I've actually got a couple of crafters here so that I can compact the items down into fewer shulker boxes. So over here, I can compact the coal down into coal blocks, and I can compact the bone down into bone blocks, and that'll make them easier to carry back to my base. And then I can put my items in chests like so. And say if I took all the coal here, I would take it out, craft into the coal blocks. It's going to crush that shulker box there. Should spit out another one, except it doesn't have one. But normally it would spit out another one. And craft that into coal blocks. Put it into this chest right here. When this one is full, it will crack that one and spit it down there. Same basic concept with the bone. And then back here, we've got a accessible shulker box loader for the wither skeleton skulls that come through. So we've got item elevators. That brings up just the bare wither skeletons. But the ones over here actually bring up the shulker boxes of items. Over here and over here. And the shulker box that I cracked actually goes back down into the shulker box loader down there. So these are closed loop systems where I've got like 30 or so shulker boxes in this one and about 45 in this one over here, because the rates on this thing are crazy. We get like 24,000 bone per hour, about 14,000 coal per hour, and 500 wither skeleton skulls per hour. That's with looting. It's quite a bit slower. It's about quarter the rates if you use the wolves, but still pretty nice because you can AFK that a little bit easier. It is just super duper satisfying to just sit here and whack all the wither skeletons. Even when I was building this thing, man, in creative, I just kept whacking them because it's just so satisfying to just sit here and whack these guys, and they just keep falling and falling. And I really love this farm. And it's a very productive farm. And now I finally have some storage that will actually keep up with full looting 3 on it. So that's fantastic as well. I know at least one other person was interested in this when I first built the sorting system for this. This one's a bit more involved, but it wasn't that hard to build. But I will definitely put a Litematica template in the description if anybody is interested in this crafting system and sorting system, etc. So I built this tree farm in my last episode, and I noted at the time that there's some sort of visual lag that occurs when I plant the tree. Basically, it just freezes my frame for a few seconds while the tree is being moved out of the way. I wasn't sure what that was, but it turns out it's actually a bug. That's a block update bug that a lot of people are having the same issue. And I said we were planning on building another tree farm that's actually bigger than this. And I went to go test that in single player, and the block update bug is actually makes that tree farm completely unusable. Basically, it just freezes up and it never comes back. And I can't even go back into that single player world because it just freezes up immediately. So hopefully they're looking into this bug, because that is literally game breaking. If that were a single player world where I'd built that tree farm and then run it, I don't know if I'd be able to ever get back into it. So that's very concerning. So that was a big project that Asta and I were planning on doing together, and unfortunately we have to put a pin in it. So I've still got plenty of other things I can work on, and Asta, Zora, and I will start on another group project sometime in the very near future. But for now, there's some things that I want to do around this building right here. I actually don't need this loader over here, and a few other things I want to do, and we might as well throw down the exterior for this building as well. So I actually had this building all done, and I noticed that the light gray up here was a little bit imbalanced. There was more of it on this side than there was on this side. And also I had some glass on a window that would have been stuck to one of the slime blocks over there. So I couldn't actually place the glass in that window. So I took it back to the drawing board, made a few extra changes, And that's actually when I decided to add the extra floors up top. I think that looks pretty good. There's nothing up there at all, but I think it's a pretty nice addition. It's amazing how this building has evolved. I've used the same basic theme. I really like this theme. I think it works. And I've used it. This is now phase 3 of this building. So if you look at phase 1, where it was just a tree farm and it had an open air blast chamber, I think it was a pretty good looking design back then. And then it evolved into phase 2, and I think I might have actually taken a few back steps as far as the design goes with this one, but it was still pretty good looking. And then we go into phase 3. I really like this building. I think this looks really nice. It's really big, prominent building. I like it a lot. And then I made a few changes to the interior as well. I raised up the ceiling quite a bit, and there are no longer any creeper holes. And then I mentioned that I didn't need the shulker box loader here anymore, and that's because this tree farm actually needed 2 shulker box loaders in order to keep up with it, and it didn't actually end up using the space behind this wall, whereas the old tree farm did. So that gave me enough space to put these 2 shulker box loaders, whereas I didn't have enough space over there. So I just diverted the water stream to come over here now for both of these systems, and that freed up the space over here. So I made this into a concrete making station. I've got some shulker box dispensers here that will dispense out when this shulker box is empty. It'll crack the shulker box and dispense out another shulker box of sand. So that's really convenient. Same thing with gravel. And then those empty shulker boxes will go into this chest over here. Got a crafting bench right there. Got a chest that I can put a bunch of dye in. There's a bunch of bone in this one. I use white dye quite a bit. And I got an ender chest right here. And then these boxes are where you'll actually put the concrete powder, and those feed into the concrete make over here. And this chest is just so that I can dump my inventory, so that I have a clean inventory, give me plenty of space to make the concrete powder. I actually use this to make all the gray concrete for this building, and it's pretty convenient. I really like this setup here. And then if we come into the back here, I've set up another crafting station. This time it's for bone meal because it can be quite a pain to set that up. So I can come here with my shulker box full of bone blocks, and I can dispense it out, and I can dump my inventory into the chest here. And then I can take out the bone blocks and craft them down into bone meal. And then just put them into the chest here, and it'll crack it when it's empty or when it's full, and then dispense out another one, etc. Just break one more. And the empty shulker boxes from the system actually get sent through an item elevator up here, and this part down here, they actually just go into a chest. That's because there is no good way to distribute these shulker boxes evenly between all these systems. So the best way is just manually load them in like that. I wanted to set up a system that brought them all the way back and just load them in, but getting them to evenly distribute between 6 of them, it's just too complex of a system. So I have to walk them back there manually, but still, this is a lot more convenient way of making bone meal. And then the third change I made is back here. When we upgraded to 1.16, I mentioned that my mushroom farm was broken, and it was because of this bud mechanism that's back here, and Ilmango just released the 1.16 version of that. So I've made that change, and you can see that it is now working just as expected. So that should mean that the mushroom farm is working properly. I'm a little nervous because I didn't have much luck in creative testing. I think it has to do with Litematica pasting things weird. Everything should be fine, but I just had some bad experiences in creative. And if this thing breaks, it shoots mushroom blocks in every direction, and it can end up pushing into other machines and stuff like that. So let's go for it. Let's see what's going on. Let's see if it works. Let's go ahead and run back here and watch it. I think we're having a little bit of a block update lag problem, so sorry for the low frame rates, but it does look like it is actually working properly. So that's awesome. It looks like Astazora and I are going to have a replacement group project sooner than later, but not exactly in this episode. So Asta wanted another gold farm. Now, I already have a gold farm, and it's pretty decent, but it's an XP farm first and a gold farm second. There are definitely faster versions of my gold farm than this thing. This thing is pretty good. I mean, it produces about 13,000 gold nuggets per hour, but there are definitely versions that produce about 30,000. And then Nembombs, which requires quite a bit of mob proofing, produces about 50,000 per hour. So Asta and I were working on another one that we thought might be faster, and we spent quite a while in creative, and we were working on the item collection, and we got all that working, and we realized it just wasn't going to be fast enough. And I mean, it was like just barely going to break 50,000, maybe not even. And for the amount of work it was going to require, it was actually more work than mob proofing the nether to build an M-Bombs gold farm. But we found another method. And so we spent a lot of time in creative. So that put us back a little bit. But we've got another gold farm coming that is looking even faster. This thing's very, very fast. But it's also very expensive, and it's going to take quite a bit of time to build. Now, we've already started that, but the footage I have so far isn't particularly interesting. So I'm going to leave most of that for Astazora. He's going to have a video out in a few days, and he's going to go into great detail about everything we went through. So if you'd like to watch that, I'm going to link his channel down in the description, and then when his video's out, I'll come back to this video and post his actual video in the description. So if you're watching this in the future, or if you want to come back to this video, then you can check that out, and then I will talk about it in the next episode. In the meanwhile, there's a little more prep work that I'd like to do around my base. I've got this villager breeder that I finally emptied. I actually emptied it a few weeks ago, but I actually am going to start needing some villagers again soon. So the plan was to empty this thing and then move it, because we're actually off my island here. This is no longer part of the island, and I should have room to move it over there. So I'd like to do that, but also on top of that, this thing is just ridiculous. It's got like 11 cells or something like that, and I don't think I've ever used past 2, because these first few guys actually grab all the food right away, and it never really makes it very far. I've never really put in enough food to run this whole breeder all at once, and it still produces a ridiculous amount. So I think I'm going to cut it down to 4 cells instead of 11, because this thing is just ridiculous. It's just a complete, if you actually ever put all the food in to feed all 11 cells, it would be an absolute lag fest. So I had the good sense to make sure that the old breeder actually worked before I ended up rebuilding it, and it turns out it did not. So the way that villagers toss food back and forth in 1.16, they now won't catch it in midair like they used to. So the villager breeders they would stand on top of a partial block so that the babies would fall through. That doesn't really work anymore because the food falls through as well. And so you kind of waste a lot of food unless you collect it and then send it back through. It's just not as efficient, and it ends up slowing down the breeding process. So I found this other version. So Impulse has his own version, and he actually figured out a fix for his. But the one that I had, that fix wouldn't have worked for, like setting up little platforms that would catch the food. Everything was so tightly compacted in Nembomb's villager breeder that it didn't work. But Impulse has only had 1 cell, and this one has 2 cells, and I liked that. I got this from somebody called Death Dealer, and it's got a pretty clever mechanic here that the baby villagers will actually try to, they want to jump on the beds. So they'll try to pathfind to the beds. So that is when they can't actually pathfind to the beds. Instead, they will fall down, fall in this water, and 100% of the time, the baby villagers do not end up staying in the cell there. And then I made some modifications. So I made it so that we've got a dropper right there. We can actually just drop food right in between them. So that's pretty convenient. And so I can feed it from a chest up there. I could just put food into the chest and it'll come down and get dispensed out of that dropper. And I also made it so I can turn their breeding on and off by, you can just push glass blocks into their head. Simple enough. And that'll actually turn the breeding on and off. And then I set up the whole area. This is similar to what Nembom had, where we're just we're waiting for them to grow, and when they grow, they'll actually go through and they get sent up to the very top. And then instead of having a larger area with water to push them towards the corner, I ended up just making it a small area where it's just a one by one block, so that this actually isn't set up properly. I do have an extra rail on me, so I need it set up like this. There we go. And then when I push a cart across there, it will actually grab the villager and go right straight through and send them over to my trading hall over there. Because I used panes, it doesn't exactly work with the last villager, but as long as you got a few villagers in there, this tends to work 100% of the time. But without the panes, if you just had glass blocks, then you'd hit entity cramming at 24. With the panes, I can fit quite a bit more, although I don't really like the look of this. I might need to change that up a little bit, but we can throw in some food here, and it's daytime, so I think they should actually start at least considering breeding right away. We can actually, but yeah, they should start. Yep, they're throwing food around, and you can see they're not catching it midair. They're actually going to have to go over and pick it up. And then there they go. So yeah, and yep, they're considering breeding already, and they should actually have a baby out fairly soon. And then I can come up here, and I've switched everything around on the rails to deal with this new system. And so it's actually quite a bit faster because we don't have to go as far. So if I press the button over here, then it will bring a cart to me fairly quickly. It does take a few seconds, but it's not too bad. There we go. And then I can send it on its way, and it'll get just recycled back into the same system. It hits that cactus over there, and then it just goes back into the same chest, and then they're dispensed out like that. So yeah, this seems to be working pretty well, and I'm going to have fun with some villagers sometime pretty soon. Oh, and look, we've already got 2 babies, and they've already fallen down into the hole, and there they go. And this is like 30 seconds after that last clip. So that's all I have time for today. I know this was kind of a strange episode. I didn't really have a cohesive project to work on, but that's kind of what happens when you have 2 large projects that just didn't end up working out. But I still think I got a lot done. I mean, I've got that great bone production. It's going to be very, very useful in the near future. And then I finished up my blast building. I've got some convenience features that are very nice to have. My mushroom farm is working again. Not that that's particularly interesting, but it's cool. And I've got this villager breeder working behind me, and we're going to have fun with that in the near future. And we're starting up a really cool gold farm. Oh, and there's a baby there. Very cool. And so I had a lot of fun making this episode. I hope you enjoyed watching it, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye now.